right, guys, welcome to the follow-up interview. This is part 2 of my interview with Galen McCown, and we're talking about his project for Super Snipers, which I'm happy to say successfully funded on Kickstarter. Welcome back, Galen. How you doing?
Doing well, Matt. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, no problem. So, first of all, congratulations on successfully funding Super Snipers. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. It's definitely a singular kind of experience. It was a really big deal to fund. It was wonderful. I think the day after was pretty whooped. Just kind of out of energy. But I'm just today kind of getting back to work on everything and feeling better. So there were some ups and downs to it, but yeah, overall wonderful. I did it. Yeah.
Excellent. So let's kind of go through the steps of the campaign. So talk about like that first day after you hit the launch button, how that was like, and
yeah, happily. The day of launching, it's just everything about it's a fascinating experience. I remember, that morning kind of waking up and realizing, oh shoot, I didn't get this one image in, and I've got 45 minutes to get everything up, and your fingers are shaking, and you're imagining you're going to do everything wrong, and then you get it done in 5 minutes, and you still got 25 minutes to wait to push that button, and it was kind of surreal. As soon as I hit that launch button, I never saw a zero. It just was immediately like 4 backers. And Edward TK, our friend there, was number 1 because he's just the master of doing that somehow. And the numbers, the backer numbers, and the money numbers just started kind of like rolling up like a slot machine. And it's difficult to explain. Just like within 3 minutes, I was. What was it? I might get the times wrong. I know I blogged about this, but yeah, I was like at $3,000 within a few minutes, right? And that is just that's an amazing thing. Yeah, it's like really cool, and I was euphoric. I was like grinning from ear to ear, and I felt stuck. I didn't know what to do except watch that number for a while, and it just kept doing that for a while. So that was really exciting. There were a lot of comments. Things were off to a big start. I was feeling really happy about it. And somewhere on the first day, it got stuck. It was at like $5,900 for maybe like 25 minutes or a half hour or something like that. But I know this might be difficult for people to understand who haven't experienced this, but like, it was 20 minutes that it was at that number. But like the effect on me, there was this dopamine rush of, kind of seeing those numbers go up and getting so exciting. And when it like was taken away for 20 minutes, it was literally depression. Like I was feeling despair. Yeah. And it made no rational sense. I'm like, I'm fine. Right. It's going to go up again. Don't worry. But I'm just clicking that refresh. It refreshes all on its own, but I don't wait for that. I click, the refresh button over and over. Yeah. I talk about it. It's like, being a monkey with a dopamine box that just all of a sudden stops working for a minute. And then it, quickly went over that, and I didn't fund in the first day. I was somewhere around 7,000 or 8,000 at the end of the first day. I was hoping, it's weird. It's like being a kid again with like the Tooth Fairy or Christmas or something. You go to sleep and you just imagine something magical is going to happen, overnight, and you look and it didn't happen. I was a little bit further along, but not much. But what ended up happening, which was really cool, is that James Hudson had that Wonderland's War campaign going on at the same time, and he in one of his updates had brought people's attention to Super Snipers, like, hey, this is a really cool little indie game. I think you should check it out. And it, like, immediately, minutes after he did that, we went over the funding goal. And
that's amazing.
Did 34-hour mark.
Or did he kind of just decide to do that on his own?
He mostly decided to do it on its own. Honestly, I mean, there's an interesting, I'd have to check for sure. I certainly thanked him afterwards. But I think there were 2 things that happened that may have brought my game on his radar. There was, anybody in the Board Game Design Lab probably saw this, but shortly before I launched the campaign, I had posted just kind of a note, just something I noticed myself. I'd picked out all the reviewers for the game, and at the end of it, I looked at this page, and it was all white males, right? Like that was just entirely my review page. And I said, I didn't really mean to do that. And I'm a little lost as to where to go. So I just put out there as a genuine warning, or not warning, but just something to think about to other, just think about that as you go into it. I'd given certainly thought to diversity in the game characters themselves. And then I hadn't thought too much about kind of the reviewers and how that would look. And so I posted about that, and there was a lot of fantastic responses, but there was a handful of just awful, you saw this, bigoted kind of remarks. And I think I got on James' radar when he jumped into that thread to say, you guys, better take care of your community here, because a couple people can really ruin it.
He's a pretty outspoken, critic of that kind of thing. So that definitely, I'm sure, did get his attention, and but brought your campaign to his attention, it sounds like. So
yeah, I think and I'll probably talk more about this later too. I think between that and then the Super Saver Pledge, the thing that I did that honestly I was inspired by Bez, who in her campaign had put together a pledge level for folks who couldn't otherwise afford it. The goodwill from that actually came back to me karmically many times over. So that may have been another piece where I got on awesome. His and some others' radars. So
yeah. I noticed quite a few people mentioning that on social media, that they saw that you had that type of pledge, and so it's a good thing to do, and it's also can help spread the word, because people are excited when people do good things. So that was cool to see that happen.
Yeah, it was nice. The reason I put it in, I think there's a couple. I think number one was my experience with Bez's campaign, where I saw that, and then when you pledge, you had the option of adding on to help subsidize more of those coming in, and it wasn't a lot of money, and it just felt so good. I just kind of felt like, oh, I'm getting something for myself and I'm helping somebody else out. It's kind of like, Christmas shopping or something. Like it gives you that little goodwill boost, and that I gave that same experience to my backers. I felt good about it. Honestly, it was just games going out that people otherwise wouldn't have been able to get. We can talk more about that. That's probably not entirely where they went. I think some people treat it as an early bird, but I can't be totally sure. But for the most part, I did get private messages from people, and I know that it made a difference for quite a few people. So I feel good about that. It also moved a lot of dollar backers to backers. And so that was kind of a big deal too.
Is that something you added on afterwards, or was that there from the beginning?
I started with it in the beginning. I started with 10, and they were gone immediately. That was in the first few minutes, 20 minutes of the campaign. They were gone. I added 10 more mid-campaign based on people putting in more, kind of like pledging at that extra level to add money to it. I had enough to do another 10 in the mid-campaign. And then the last day, I did 10 more. I didn't quite have enough to subsidize it all, but I just felt like we may as well, end it with some more out there. So so that accounted, well, it should have accounted for 30 pledges. I had one person drop in like the very last minute, and nobody was able to snatch one. So it was 29 of them that sold for $25. So.
And it's interesting because your base pledge was only $10 more than that Super Saver.
Mid campaign I adjusted that, but yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
It was less before.
It was more before. So the base pledge before I started at $48, and we can definitely talk about that at some point.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Why you changed it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I funded in 36 hours. I had over $10,000. I had a lot of people telling me, hey, you're doing everything right. And I was feeling really good. And then it was just crickets, man. It was just for days and days, like almost nothing happening. I'd gain backers, I would lose backers, but at the end of the day, maybe up a couple $100 every once in a while down. And I was just feeling lost as to like what was going on. And people can read the blog and understand where I arrived at that price. I was going, by the whole 6 times landed cost kind of model, and really thinking through protecting my numbers into distribution retail, which, spoiler alert, probably aren't the things you should be focusing on with your first Kickstarter, at least my advice now having gone through it. And I heard, so Alex at Board Game Co. Was doing kind of the weekly roundup of what was on there. And he did a preview for me, a very positive preview. He likes Super Snipers. He was a fan of it, huge fan of the video. And he was talking about, hey, this game is great. Why isn't it doing better than it is? And which was the question I had too. And he said, I think it's this price point. You've got this game that's a 2-player puzzle game, and fair or not, people are going to compare it to Patchwork, which you can get for $25. And this is $48 and $15 shipping. I think the price is what's stalling it. So, I heard that from him. I heard it from another, I didn't ask her permission to use her name, so I won't, but another self-publisher that, this campaign should be like a $45,000 campaign, and it is your price that is hamstringing you. And so I went to my backers. I created a poll, like a Google Sheets poll or whatever, a survey, Google survey. And I sent it out to all the backers, and I checked on a couple things, and one of them was, do you think the game is a deal? Do you think it's fairly priced? Do you think it's a little overpriced? Do you think it's very overpriced? And then I also added just a follow-up question, what would you expect to pay for this game? And ended up about 30. And I did that for my backers. Then I also surveyed my email list. And so to catch people that maybe hadn't backed yet as well, which ended up being a very smart thing to do. And I got a large response. A good amount of people responded. And I ended up about somewhere around 38% of people thought it was overpriced. And then the vast majority of people said somewhere in the $35 to $40 range is what they would expect the game to be. And so I was faced with, okay, so what the hell do I do?
Right.
With this knowledge now? Yeah. Now I understand. And, and honestly, one, piece of advice I got, which I didn't follow, was, this is the time where you say, hey, I made a mistake, cancel the campaign. I'm going to relaunch. I'm going to give you guys a better deal, and let the campaign be everything it should have been, right? Which I understand.
Once you funded, I mean, you already funded. Like, canceling the campaign would be rough.
It just feels gross to me. Yeah, I don't like it. I have now. I chose because of exactly that. I feel like, you get over that point of funding. That's the promise you made. Now the game's getting made, right? And I feel strongly about that. I think that, for me personally, I couldn't back out on that, and I'm happy I didn't. I'll skip out of that. I'm happy I didn't. At the same time, having been there, another creator in my exact same position, I actually no longer would hold that against them. I get it.
You understand.
You make mistakes, and there's a lot of, there's money on the line with the whole thing. So, right. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I can't do that, but what can I do? And I got to tell you, I went through, I was doing the math on, okay, do I come up with a new base version, kind of like upgrade the current version that I got and come up with a new base version. And then I'm looking at 2 production runs, and that really is going to up my overall costs. And I don't know if it's going to work. You don't know if anything's going to, work that you're going to do. I'll skip all the kind of thought processes, but basically I ended up paying to do an hour consultation with Gabe, which was awesome. He's, Board Game Design Lab is absolutely where I got started, and that podcast was where I got started. And so it was really cool to talk to him. I had always kind of, part of the fantasy of this whole campaign was to be on the podcast, but of course it ended before that could happen. So it was nice to have that conversation privately and that back and forth with Gabe. But anyways, he had gone through something somewhat similar with Robomon, and so he was kind of excited to talk to me about it. And also he had polled his backers, and the solution that he came up with, he said he was looking on the page and he said, what, the Super Saver thing is awesome. This is really popular. This was a really cool thing to do. Like, what if you just, had something, a pay what you want kind of pledge level, and allow people to get the game for what they want, and then give them a reason not to drop their current pledge level. If anything you had that you were saving for stretch goals, that you can realistically afford, could you throw them on there? And, I took, I went from that conversation, I came up with a plan where I upgraded the whole game. So I did add some stretch goals I had. I brought in acrylic tokens. I brought in better bags. And then what I did was I made a $35 level where you could just get the game, all the components upgraded as they were supposed to be, and any unlock stretch goals part of it. You could get that for $35. And then I upped the $48 level pledge to include a mini expansion, as well as a couple more things that didn't cost me a lot of money but are cool, like a make your own targets digital assets pack. And it would also include the PMP and the digital art stuff, all the stuff included before. So I made those new pledge levels, and and I sent out a message to my backers, and I did an email. I said, hey, this is in response to the survey. I'm trying to make a mid-campaign shift. And it was so scary, Matt, because I did that, and realistically, any number of things could have happened. I could have, every single one of my $48 level backers could have dropped. I could have lost money from this, right? Yeah. And it was scary, but the fact was it did reinvigorate the campaign. I mean, not huge, but it was like after days of kind of more or less flatlining or slightly going up, I had like overnight an $800 boost and like 36 more backers, and then it just started. It kind of like greased the wheels again, and things got going.
Yeah. It is amazing to me how around $10 can make such a big difference between someone's perceived value of a game, even though everything you throw in there is totally worth the $48. And even maybe just a psychological thing of seeing a $35 pledge level and then someone deciding, oh, that's cool, but I'll throw in for the $48 one.
Yeah.
It's amazing kind of the psychology of purchasing and all of that stuff that goes into that. But I think the lesson I take from you is, don't be afraid to make those mid-campaign, those big changes mid-campaign if you're getting into a slump or if you think something's not right, and going in there and making those adjustments. And that seemed to work out for you overall.
100%. I think the very important caveat to that, well, two things. One is make sure you understand what the problem is. So survey your backers, because that made such a difference. I mean, first of all, it showed, hey, I care. I want to understand. And, my response, came in response to what the actual problem was. If I was wrong about the problem, this would have been dumb. It wouldn't have worked, right? And then the other part is, think. I know you have to do things somewhat quickly, but you have to really kind of think through the consequences. I was very close to kind of putting myself on the line for another production run, and I'm really glad I talked to Gabe and figured out a different plan, because that would have been bad. I would be, that would have put me in the hole a lot more. So
totally.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely. I think it was worth doing. I think, the limitations of Kickstarter, one of them is you cannot change a pledge level after you've made it. So my solution had to take that into account. And there was some confusion with that. I did my best. It worked out okay. But, there were more things in the $48 pledge level, but I absolutely cannot change that on the side of the page. All I can do is put it in the main page, and also in the new level say, hey, if you want all this extra stuff, go up to the next level, because you can't edit it at all. And that makes it really challenging.
And are you going to end up needing to do a different print run for that, or how are you handling the upgraded version?
So the whole thing is so the $48 level, what it's coming with is a mini expansion. So that was a small print run, but that's a really easy one. That's going to be 10 cards and 4 little discs. That one's pretty simple. MSRP of 10. I did it for 8 in the Kickstarter. That one was pretty easy to justify. 10 cards in a box and a couple of chips is not that much money. Yep. And even if I did the minimum and the cost at the minimum, it still would be okay for me. So I threw that in for free, as well as made it available. So some people still did the $35 and the 8 to get to 43. And then the other things were the print and play, which isn't really costing me anything. Digital art pack, really not costing me anything. And this make your own map assets pack. So I just threw in some extra things in there, and nothing that other than the mini expansion, which is great to be able to offer anyways. I didn't have to make 2 different games. It was really important to me. I think I've gotten the advice, and I would give it not to do the whole deluxe version, base version thing for your first Kickstarter. It's just such a risk.
Yeah, it's a lot, right? And you're making 2 totally separate versions of the game that you have to print and all that stuff. So yeah, that's good advice. And then I see you have kind of the higher tier levels that you offered as well. What was kind of the thought process behind that, and how do you think that went?
Yeah, so Well, that was great. So one of the best pieces of advice I got along the way was from Holt Gray, who did 44 BCE. I don't know if you interviewed him or not, but yeah. So um, I'll say also a number of creators reached out to me. A number of people with things on Kickstarter who had done Kickstarters just reached out of the blue. Some people I'd interacted with, some people I'd never interacted with, just to say, "Hey, how are you doing?" And it's such a great community. I've tried to do the same myself too for a few people at this point, because I love it. I love this community. But anyways, he had reached out, and the piece of advice that he gave that stuck with me, he said, don't put a ceiling on what your backers can spend. There are people out there who want to spend money. Give them the opportunity to just put it out there, because they had done for their Kickstarter, kind of a put yourself on a card thing. Get the deluxe edition, and they went around $900 or something like that, or maybe $790, something, a big amount of money. And they sold 9 of them, and I'm like, yeah, okay, all right. Like, so I mean, 2 things. One, I did the prototypes at 300, and that one was a little bit more calculated, because honestly, prototypes are expensive. Each one of them has been mailed multiple places. By the time they get back to me, I've spent almost that much money on those things. So that one felt good. I sold 4 of those, 4 out of 8 of those. So that was, $1,200 for 4 backers. That was certainly a significant amount of money. And then I put that elite tier. I honestly, there probably are more expensive pledge levels out there, but I went crazy with it when I set that so high, like ridiculously high, almost like I don't actually want to do this. Maybe but one thing I did do with it, if you read it too, is 1,400 of that 1,500 goes directly to the artist. It was an opportunity for a payday for the artist, and some people feel really good about that. And so I put it out there. I didn't know what would happen. I only put 2, because that was the most I could think of putting in the game if it actually worked. And actually, I should check with him. I don't know if he saw because of the James Hudson thing, but he came in right after that wave. That was part of that boost that put us over. And the backer we got, it was fascinating. Like, I won't say who he is or anything like that, but he has done this 15 to 20 times with other games. And he has a character that basically, it's so cool. In our game, it's going to be Archangel, and he has a character that exists as a meta character that only exists in other game universes. Like, he doesn't have his own universe. You just have to like keep up with him in other games. And so like, it was such a blast to make the character and figure out how to make them fit into Super Snipers. And it was a big boost to the campaign. So yes, cool. Another piece of advice, don't let people spend crazy money. Put something insane out there, because you never know. That was a big boost.
That whole kind of customized kind of piece that would end up in the final game, I think, is super intriguing for someone who has the money and wants to immortalized in a game like that is a super cool prospect. So why not, right?
There's really no good reason, as long as you're not setting yourself up to make the production too much more expensive. Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
So hindsight being 2020 and all of that, what do you think are some of the things that you did before the campaign started that had the biggest impact overall on the success of the campaign? Even if it's just a feeling, you might not know for sure.
Yeah, I don't know probably most of these things for sure. Okay, so things that led to the success. I did do 3 months of pre-marketing. That one I know made a difference. I have this in the blog. Before I started pre-marketing, I had maybe 34 people on an email list. I had maybe 70 people following the Kickstarter page, and by the end, I had just short of 1,000-person email list and around 900 people following the Kickstarter page. By the end, it was like over 1,300. So that definitely made a difference. I mean, there were other things that grew those numbers, but the marketing and paying for that was definitely a huge one. I think just the thing I found the most challenging, kind of staying active on social media and kind of just staying in front of people, definitely made a difference. Yeah, I think the reviews and previews one, I'm not sure. I think a couple of them made a difference. I think Alex choosing to review the game made a big difference for sure. And then along the way, a couple of channels that were kind of reviewing what was going on, and highlighted us. Definitely, those all caused some big boosts. So some of that was under my power. I sought out Alex. The other ones just kind of happened, and it was nice. A lot of the previews probably didn't result in backers, but it is just kind of, what do they say? It's like a hygiene aspect. Like you have to have them, right? Like it's important.
Right.
And so that was fun. So yeah, I'd say all that. I think obviously choosing an artist that has a really, really distinct and powerful style, like it just looks good. I think choosing Ori for the video made a difference. That's just a kick-ass Kickstarter video.
Awesome.
And yeah.
Yeah, all that stuff makes it stand out for sure. Cool. So what's next? What's kind of the next step? What are you going to do now that the campaign's over? What are kind of the next level things? And is there another game on the horizon, or are you kind of still just focused 100% on Super Snipers for now?
Okay, so next I'll start with Super Snipers. Yeah, there's a lot to do, and it's okay. It's funny. I just quickly, I'll say the same thing in the blog, but I was talking to Dave Beck last night, who did Distilled, and he was congratulating me, and he's somebody who's obviously been through this process, and I talked about how at the end it's like stepping off of a roller coaster that you've been on for a month, and it just takes a minute to find your feet. You feel a little wobbly, and he said, let me add to that metaphor. It's like stepping off of the roller coaster after a month, and then immediately being told you have to go clean a bathroom because there's all this stuff you have to do to follow up on. So
work that you have to do after.
Exactly. Yeah. So got to set up my pledge manager and backer kit. So I'm currently going through that process. There's a lot of things SWA has to do in terms of the art. I am increasing my playtesting, which I have a lot more playtesters now, so that's great. And in terms of making sure that everything I added to the game, I mean, I've been playtesting them right along, but I have to accelerate that. I've had some people do some paid, some volunteer, some translations of the rule book, which is really exciting, but man, it's tedious work, kind of like copying and pasting the translation into the actual rule book.
Wow.
A lot of little minutia has to happen. And then also kind of like, I feel like a responsibility, and also that's in my best interest I've gained a community from this. That kind of surprised me how much that happens. I've gained some fans, right? I've gained some people who are really excited about this game and joined the Discord and joined the groups. And I need to maintain that. I need to cultivate that. I think too often, and again, this is one of those things, I totally get it. I totally get it now that I've been here, but you've probably seen this, there's a designer or a publisher and you're just seeing them everywhere for months, and they're so interactive, and they're just doing all these things. You're excited about their game, and then when the campaign ends, like you don't hear from them again until it delivers.
Yeah, that's too bad. I know what you're talking about.
I kind of get it, but I don't want to be that person, and I have to find a balance between what I was like during this Kickstarter, which I absolutely cannot maintain, and what works now. So,
I've seen it happen with creators where they do well on their first Kickstarter, it funds, and then they kind of drop off and don't engage with their community. And then they launch a second Kickstarter and they don't do as much work because they just assume it's going to be as successful as the first one. And I've seen them fail because they didn't put in that continued work to foster the community. And to me, it's kind of like, a snowball rolling downhill, and you want to continue that momentum. And the only way you can continue the momentum is to keep putting yourself into it and keep doing the things you were doing beforehand. Otherwise, you're just going to be starting a whole new snowball up on the top of the hill again. And it's not going to be that big thing that just keeps generating, better and better successes for you down the line. And I think that's super smart of you to be, focused on that and continuing to stay active. I think that's important.
I think that's a great metaphor. I think that's absolutely right. I think, in a lot of ways, getting the game made, getting it out so people can play it, is the big number one goal, and that's happening. And I'm absolutely celebrating that. But I'm not sure I realized this at the beginning, but I do now. But really, kind of what I've done that will matter if I'm going to do this going forward is that I have 432 backers, which isn't the most any campaign's ever got, but it's really good for a first-time campaign. That I need to cultivate that. That is the base. That is the starter dough for something much, much bigger down the line if I want to do it, and I'm willing to put the work in. So yeah, that's definitely something I'm thinking about. Yeah, games wise, I absolutely have. I mean, I have more ideas for Super Snipers. I have lots of other games in various states of development, about 13 or 14. One that I would really like to bring, but I've got to decide that. And then, but I think I might actually, in discussions right now with Wah, who is a game designer himself, and has some great games, but he's stuck in Malaysia and can't use Kickstarter. I'm thinking of actually doing one of his next. So
that's cool.
Yeah. He has some really cool games, and another one that's like a 2-player head-to-head. So my thing apparently. I don't know if I'll be stuck here forever, but that's apparently that's going to be my thing for now, or what my audience is interested in. So
that's awesome.
I'm thinking about that.
That'll also help give your next few games a similar aesthetic, because he'll be doing the design for them. And that could be a very cool partnership, because he's proven to be great to work with and all that stuff. So why not continue working with him?
I don't have any good answer to that. I think I will. I mean, plus because he was great, and it was great, and it's the amount of skills he brings. I mean, you can absolutely hire an artist, hire a graphic designer, pay separately for somebody to do your Kickstarter page, pay separately for somebody to do your gifts. Like, he can do all of that, and he did it. And it's like, that was amazing. Just having one person who felt like he was just on board and he was part of the project. And I could just communicate like, we need to switch this stretch goal, because I'm just not that good at graphic design. It's going to look better if he does it. And so having someone, that was partnered that way, that was just incredible. It made such a huge difference. And I'd have a hard time, I think, justifying working with somebody else unless it really just needed that different art style. So we'll see. Yeah, this may be a thing. Maybe all my games will be with him. I have no idea.
So if someone missed out on the Kickstarter and would like to check out or maybe even buy the game, do you have pre-order set up, or are those coming soon?
Coming soon. Yep, very soon. So it will be on the Kickstarter page that you can get a little button that'll send people to late pledges. So I'm hopefully getting that in the next couple of weeks. I'm navigating the whole backer kit thing. I've got a couple big decisions to make about whether I want to have some more things on there or not. So I will meditate on those and figure out what I'm doing.
I'm sure we'll hear about it all on your blog, because that's
absolutely
super helpful resource to kind of see behind the scenes. You're very open and transparent there. So I'll put a link to your blog in the show notes, and also I assume through your website people can sign up for your newsletter to get updates when that late pledge is open.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks for being on the show and sharing all of this super valuable information. Congratulations again, and I look forward to kind of following you in your journey and see what else you come out with in the future.
Appreciate it, Matt. Thank you.
All right, and thank you guys for catching another episode of KickSaga. If you want to see future episodes where I'll interview more first-time Kickstarter tabletop game creators and see what they did before the campaign launches, and then the lessons they learned afterwards, go ahead and hit that subscribe button below, click the bell so you get notified on new episodes, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.